There's a lot of buzz as we enter this week. Now, the folks who write for a living are really, really excited about this. They're juiced about it. I don't know why it is, but it doesn't have me all that excited. But it does have really, really big ramifications. Here's what's happening. Monday, April 7th, has been a date that everybody has been waiting on. It doesn't matter where I've gone. It doesn't matter if I've talked to coaches or I've talked to athletic directors or agents. All the people involved in making college football's world go round have been collectively looking at April 7th and this decision by this judge, Claudia Wilken is her name. Name's not necessarily important, but what she's going to rule on is there is a settlement that was reached between, House, NCAA. A lot of it's boring. I'll go over the very, very broad strokes of it for you, but this is going to be ruled on tomorrow. Whether it's going to be upheld, is it going to be recognized, or are you going to have a lot of pushback on it? All this is going to start to unravel or tighten itself up tomorrow. Okay, so you're going to hear a lot of noise about this. Here is what I wanted to discuss with you, because it really doesn't concern me about the legalese. This is not that kind of show. You don't care about it. I know what our numbers say. You care about college football. You care about Saturdays in the fall. I do too. I don't care about the other stuff. So what I wanted to talk to you about briefly is what actually matters to us. If you feel the way I feel on this, I want what's best for college football, and I'm selfish about it. Because I think, ironically, me getting my way selfishly means a lot of people get their way. I think my way is really good for players. I think my way is also really good for coaches. I think my way is great for fans, of which I am one. So you may not agree with me is the point. It all boils down to this. If you're watching on YouTube, Colin just brought a big slider on the side of the screen, and it shows all of what Uncle Dennis Dodd would summarize for you. There's a good article over on CBSSports.com right now. If you really want to dive into the legal weeds of this, he's got you covered. I don't fancy myself that kind of person. So for me, deciding where you stand on this whole thing comes down to a couple of things. Number one, how do you feel about massive player movement in college football right now? Basketball's got its own set of problems. Some would say it's worse, but I'm talking about college football. Okay, I'm not telling you how to feel. I'm asking you, how do you feel about the insane thousands upon thousands of numbers of players that are moving from one roster to another, which is directly tied to the second thing, and that is, how do you feel about straight up, unregulated pay-for-play, loosely disguised as NIL? You may think both are great, in which case you and I may differ on how we want this to play out. Very, very unscientific polling from our audience and just general college football fans is most of you don't like that a ton of folks are moving. Now, there's a difference between you don't like it versus you don't think they should have the right to, and that's its own separate conversation. I'm asking you tonight for a little while, it's okay to be selfish. You tell me what you personally prefer. I'm going to tell you what I personally prefer. I'm going to tell you how I hope this plays out. What I personally prefer, and you can call me crazy and you can call me antiquated in my way of thinking, what I personally prefer is a world where when a kid commits to Oklahoma and as a true freshman may not necessarily play a lot, I love to envision a world where he's got plenty of money in his pocket and he's still there as a sophomore. And then he sticks it out and works his way into the two deep, and then he's there as a junior and he's a starter, and then he shines as a senior. And, the classical college football, work your way up the depth chart sort of story. It's not for everyone. There are case-by-case examples where it's clearly in a guy's best interest to transfer. We all acknowledge that. Let's put the exception to the rule to the side. I'm telling you in a general sense what I want is I want a world where continuity matters. I want a world where basically hey, quick time out. Check and see if you're subscribed to the channel. If you're not, make sure you do. It's free. It doesn't obligate you or sign you up for anything. It just helps us keep the channel free. All right, back to the show. Term commitment actually kind of means what it used to mean. And I do know when I say that, before I move any further, I do know there will be detractors, and the first thing out of those detractors' mouths, and they aren't wrong when they say this, is, do you care about commitment from coaches? Yeah, I sure do. I think it's crap that a lot of them move too. I think Marcelo had the stat where a third of coaches changed jobs last year. Not head coaches, coaches in general. Third of them changed jobs. A lot of it's ridiculous. Okay, so if you want to present legislation to control that, I'm all for hearing that as well. But we are talking about players right now. All right, so what we're looking at, the specific parameters, if you're just totally checked out on this stuff, what is this settlement anyway? What are they trying to decide on? What's the settlement? Well, the NCAA came to sort of like a class action settlement, and it involves what you've been hearing about. It involves schools, especially in the bigger conferences, being able to revenue share, up to a little over $20 million per year. So if you're Michigan, if you're Auburn or LSU or Ohio State, but also if you're Vanderbilt or if you're Rutgers, this time next year, really starting in July, if this goes through, you're able to take a little over $20 million and you're able to distribute it just like it's a salary. It's a payroll. And you get to decide which of your players gets how much. I think your roster number goes down to 105. But yeah, so that's how that works. And then you may think, well, what about NIL? Well, that's not NIL. That's just revenue that's being shared to you because of the massive media rights money that is flowing throughout the major conferences. So part of the settlement, part of the agreement here, and the NCAA not being sued for several more $1 billion in back damages than it already is, which I think is about 2.75, is okay, well, if we're not going to triple this number that you owe in this back damage class action lawsuit, then part of the settlement is you're going to share that revenue. Okay, we will. So that's part one. Part two of this settlement, and this is really, really where the gears start to grind for the legal types out there, is NIL is really NIL. There is basically a governing body, separate and apart from the NCAA, mind you. There is a governing body that is constructed and given autonomy to police NIL deals, and they can't be above fair market value. So if Minnesota comes to me and I'm a tailback and they want to pay me $4 million a year, it'd never happen, but let's just say it would. They want to pay me $4 million a year through a local car wash, and the car wash, wink, wink, nod, nod, just puts me on some posters. I'm promoting the car wash. They're paying me $4 million. Hey, NIL. Well, everyone knows that's not real NIL. It's just pay for play, and they're funneling it through a local business. Right now, they can't do much to police that. In this model, they would be able to do that because the University of Minnesota or its collective would have to prove to whatever this governing body is that what they're paying me, the 4-star running back from Nashville, Tennessee, to play there is equivalent to what the fair market value would be if I were just any other person. Now, as you can clearly tell, there's going to be immediate legal pushback on this, even if it is recognized. So I'll let the lawyers decide that, and I'll address them in a second. I just want to tell you and me and everyone else sitting around the old Pate State campfire tonight who are mere college football fans who don't really necessarily get jacked to attend, a hearing in a courtroom. We want to attend a game on a field. It's okay to be selfish on this. I'm being selfish on it. I have long since rid myself of, any kind of unbiased view of this. I've got bias, my own personal interest. I'm looking out for what's in the best interest of college football as I see it. You and I may differ on that, but I want what's best for college football. Okay, so I want enforceable rules. I want to know what they are, and then I want them to be able to be enforced. I don't want to see a set of rules, but then everyone laugh at them and say, yeah, the speed limit sign says 70, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if USC goes 113 and Florida State goes 117 because the cop's got 4 flat tires on his car and his siren doesn't work, and he also knows even if he does catch up to him and pull him over, he can't really hold him or charge him because he really doesn't have any power or authority. That's the way college football is right now. I don't like that. I don't think it's in the best interest of college football. I think it serves the long-term detriment of the game instead of the opposite. Okay, so first thing I want is clearly defined rules. I'd love for them to be enforceable. I want a world where players are incentivized to stay, not trapped on a roster, not imprisoned on a roster and told you got to stay there. You committed to Illinois, you've got to stay at Illinois, and you're not allowed to go anywhere. Not only is that illegal, even if it wasn't, that's not conducive to a world that is what's best for college football. What I want is when I'm a freshman and I go to Illinois, I know I'm getting a certain amount of money through revenue sharing. But you know what else I hope exists? I hope there exists a world where that freshman, even if he doesn't play in year one, if he's on that roster year two, his income scales. His rev share scales a little bit. And he knows as a sophomore, he'll earn more if he's still there. And then as a junior, I don't care if he's playing or not, but especially if he is playing, he'll earn more. And as a senior, that's when you really bank. That's when you earn max rev share. That's what I hope exists. At that point, if I want to transfer, I can still transfer. They're never going to outlaw the concept of a transfer. But what I do know is if it ever comes down to a 50-50 deal, it ever comes down to, well, I really want to stay here, but they're just offering me too much over there. If it comes down to that, which it does right now a lot, guys move all the time when they don't really want to move, that structure incentivizes them. It tips the scale enough to where they'll stay. I want that kind of world. I'd love more roster continuity. I'd love for the numbers in the portal to be cut in like 75% plus terms. I'd love that because I'd love guys incentivized to stay. I want evaluation to have maximum value. I want development to have maximum value. Right now, it feels like the skill is having the deepest pocketbook, the biggest checkbook. It sounds very naive, because when I say that, if you don't know any better, you think I believe that didn't exist before. I know it existed before. I've been around a little while. I know how college athletics works. Here's how I'm telling you I hope it works. Here's how I'm telling you I'd love college football to work. I would love evaluation to have a premium on it because everyone's spending the same amount. I'd love for development to have a premium placed on it. And if I suck at my job, I'd love to know that I don't just go enlist the services of a billionaire's checkbook to bail me out. I'd actually love for that mechanism not to exist, and evaluation and development within a program over a set number of years, we used to call that culture. I'd love for that stuff to matter again. I think college football's better. I think the product's better. I think the level of ball on the field is better when that's the climate that we exist in. I also want commitment to carry weight. Now, I mean this on the coaching front and the players front, but especially on the players front because I used to follow recruiting hardcore. And I followed recruiting hardcore not because I thought the deal was ironclad. You could commit to Tennessee and decommit and then commit to Alabama. That stuff happened. It'll always happen. But when you did commit, when you signed on the dotted line for North Carolina, the general rule of thumb up until about 3 or 4 years ago was statistically you're likely to be there 2 years later. It is likely you're not going anywhere. And then things changed. And they changed because there was really no set rules. It's just everyone do whatever you want to at all times. You go into spring, you still don't even know who's on your team come fall. And I think there were some people with very penny-wise, pound-foolish mentalities out there who yelled, oh, good, let's tear down the system. And rebuild what? Like, tear down what system? Everyone loves to chant death to the NCAA. I'm no friend of the NCAA. Anyone who's watched this show understands that. What I'm a fan of is structure because I think it serves the long-term best interest of what I love, which is college football. Any civil society out there, like which of them have thrived with lawlessness long-term? Like where is that example in history? I don't see that in society and life. I don't see it in sports. So it was kind of catchy and cool. It was kind of edgy to just yell, oh, free for all. Let's get the chaos. We love this. Well, we really don't. We really don't. It was a novelty for a little while, and then you started to look around and realize it's kind of like asking, well, what if a baby was president? There would be no rules. There would be no laws. Things might get terrible. It would probably be a better screenplay than an actual idea, to quote Michael Scott. That's kind of like the portal, and then NIL, and then no rules. It sounded like a good screenplay idea, good movie, not so good for real life. So I do know when I've talked about this before, I've had even a couple of buddies of mine, they've said, I hear what you're saying on this. You're talking about what you personally want for college football. However, we love the way it is right now because we love, and stop me if you've said this before, we love the parity that NIL and the portal era has injected into the sport. No longer do just 2 or 3 teams run things. We love the competitive balance and the randomness that this has inserted. Well, I hear you on that. And I've got an idea for you. If you really want a world that maximizes the competitive balance to the extent that it's possible in college football, you want the world I'm advocating for. You know, the world as it exists right now is prone to a rogue billionaire coming in and buying a recruiting class. They kind of are doing that, but there's nothing that stops that from happening. Now, it sounds good if it's your team. You know, it could just as easily be your rival down the road. But no matter who it is, I want you to tell me, do you think that's in the best interest of college football? I don't. Option B, the one we're pursuing here, that's the option where everyone has a bunch of money to spend, but it's roughly the same amount. And so the folks who are really sharp and really shrewd with the way they spend and the way they allocate resources and then the way they evaluate and sign the right players and invest in them year over year instead of trying to go out and patchwork their roster via the portal, those are the ones that thrive long term. That right there, especially when you got as much to spend as I do, instead of me having 3 times as much to spend as you do, like it used to be back in the day and it may be right now, that's how you get long-term competitive balance, but that's also how you get good roster continuity. That's how you maximize the caliber of football being played, because you got more teams built with more rosters of more guys who have been there more years. Somehow, some way, that feels dirty to some people out there, but I am telling you now, you'll notice this. There is going to be a vocal vast minority that speak out against this. They have every right to their opinion. I'm just telling you, the rights of players are really not what's at risk here. Because I am on multiple campuses every week this time of year. I swear to you, the next kid who voices an ounce of complaint about the current state of college football will be the first. They love it. None of them are complaining about it. I'll tell you who's complaining about it, and we'll just move on. The rights of players have never been more plentiful. Players have never had it better. But I will tell you, the rights of lawyers and agents to feast on the lack of structure, that's what's at risk right now. They bang the drum of players' rights. They don't give a crap about players' rights. They care about their ability to thrive, because no one's thrived recently in college football more than lawyers and agents. And I'm not talking about agents whose names you've known for a long time, because they'll be fine no matter what. I'm talking about people who have found a home in the chaos, who have found profitability in the chaos. They're the ones who are really nervous. But they can't tell you that's why they're nervous, because they'd garner no public support. So instead, they got to try and fool you into thinking players' rights are on the line here. Players' rights aren't on the line. Players in any of these scenarios are about to make a ton of money. It's just that they'll probably benefit more long-term over the next 40 years versus 4 years in one versus the other. I just don't think it's the one that the legal types and the street agents are telling you it is. That's where I stand on this.